Zack Snyder hints his potential return to DC hinges on an invitation from Gunn for a comic book adaptation that Snyder is deeply interested in. Welcome to Stats In. If you're just joining us, please subscribe and don't forget to turn on notifications bell for more video. During his DC reign, Zack Snyder's rather abrupt departure left many questioning if he'd ever return. Despite whispers of unfinished business, Snyder declared that the chapter was closed. Yet, amidst the uncertainty, it seems that one thread persists: the siren call of The Dark Knight Returns. The tale resonates with Snyder so much that he is ready to jump back in to adapt this to the big screens if DC ever calls him up. Though Snyder remains adamant that the chapter is done for, there's a glimmer of possibility. Should his dear friend James Gunn extend an offer, particularly one involving the adaptation of Frank Miller's iconic work, Snyder might just find himself drawn back into the fold, ready to reignite the bat signal once more. Following his direction of Man of Steel in 2013 and the superhero showdown Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice in 2016, Zack Snyder was a natural choice to helm the Justice League. The film aimed to unite DC Comics' iconic characters in a battle to save the world. However, tragedy struck Snyder's family during the initial filming stage in 2017 when his daughter died by suicide. Initially considering continuing work on Justice League as a means of coping, Snyder later realized the immense toll it took. He stepped away in May 2017 to prioritize his family's well-being. He revealed to The Hollywood Reporter, "The demands of this job are pretty intense. It is all-consuming. And in the last 2 months, I've come to the realization, I've decided to take a step back from the movie to be with my family, be with my kids, who really need me. They are all having a hard time. I'm having a hard time." This resulted in Joss Whedon stepping in to fill the shoes. Now, with significant time passed by and DC undergoing a transformation into the DCU from the DCU, speculation rises about Snyder's potential return to the franchise under James Gunn's leadership. In a more recent 2023 interview with The Hollywood Reporter, Snyder hinted at the possibility. Although it all depends on if Gunn ever asks him to come back to DC, Snyder said he might think about making a The Dark Knight Returns movie. But he'd only do it if it stayed true to the original comic book. Currently, Zack Snyder has his hands full with his ambitious project Rebel Moon, where he attempted to build a captivating world from scratch, brimming with stunning visuals and adrenaline-pumping action sequences. The two-part movie, believed to be a part of something that is going to be a whole expansive universe, has captivated Snyder's fanbase, despite receiving mixed reviews from critics. However, should the opportunity present itself, digging into The Dark Knight Returns adaptation wouldn't be a bad venture for Snyder. Originally published in 1986 across 4 issues, penned and illustrated by Frank Miller, it tells the tale of an aged Bruce Wayne returning as Batman to combat crime. Hailed as one of the best Batman narratives, its influence has spawned numerous adaptations across various media forms. Its triumph on the streaming giant Netflix is another feat it has achieved, as Rebel Moon, Part 1. A Child of Fire soared to the top spot globally during the week of December 18 to 23, 2023, garnering a staggering 23.9 million views. Its dominance continued the following week, Zack Snyder's controversial gimmick 34 million views might undermine the upcoming film's epic narrative. Welcome to Stats In. If you're just joining us, please subscribe and don't forget to turn on notifications bell for more video. As Ridley Scott gears up to release Gladiator 2, fans of the original 2000 epic are bracing for a fresh dose of cinematic grandeur. However, despite the excitement surrounding the upcoming movie, Scott's project seemingly faced a few strikes from fans regarding its soundtrack in the trailer. Meanwhile, there appeared another potential issue, following lead actor Paul Mescal's interview. Following the success of Ridley Scott's original Gladiator, 2000, with its visceral and dynamic battle sequences, the filmmaker decided to return with similar intensity in Gladiator 2. Picking up the story 20 years after the events of the original movie, Scott hired Paul Mescal to play the titular character Lucius, glimpsed as a kid last time around, not played by Mescal. According to recent comments from Paul Mescal, the film's lead star hinted that Ridley Scott may have borrowed a page from Zack Snyder's playbook, particularly in the use of slow motion during fight scenes. This decision could prove to be a double-edged sword, in the light of some of the pitfalls that Snyder's films have faced. This time Paul Mescal's Lucius will enter the world of gladiatorial combat, promising blood, brawls, and beastly encounters set against the story of vengeance. Ridley Scott's Gladiator 2 will therefore witness Lucius facing off against Pedro Pascal's Roman general, Marcus Acacius. Meanwhile, considering the gritty take on the film, Mescal informed audiences via Empire magazine on what to expect from it. I had always had a kind of latent ambition to do something that was more muscular and physical. From a selfish side of things, I wanted to surprise an audience, because I knew that I have this kind of role within me. When this came up, I was like, this is something that I don't think anybody who's seen the work that I've done previously will be expecting, and it's Ridley Scott. We made an attempt to not feel slick. You're feeling like their bodies are slowing down as they're fighting. It's not like ting ting ting. It's more brutal. You're feeling the fatigue. It's full-bore, brutal action. Considering Paul Mescal's comments, we can safely assume that Gladiator 2 will be a bloodbath. But more than anything, what we picked up from the depths of his words is Ridley Scott's attempt at a distinct cinematic style that's often seen in Zack Snyder's films, slow-motion sequences. Designed to heighten the drama of pivotal moments, as the slow-motion style has long been Snyder's staple, it seems even Scott is probably leaning towards it. When a slow-motion style is used effectively, it can intensify action scenes, allowing audiences to savor every detail of a character's struggle or triumph. Therefore, Paul Mescal's comment seems to suggest that Ridley Scott might be using it as a deliberate stylistic choice to emphasize the physicality and gravity of combat in Gladiator 2. But while slow-motion shots could enhance the epic feel, it could also end up being a risky move. Considering how Zack Snyder's reliance on heavy use of slow motion has been criticized for turning a moment of tension into a prolonged spectacle deviating from the story, Ridley Scott's decision to follow in his footsteps could end up being a risky gamble. In Snyder's films like 300, slow-motion sequences were employed to create a visually striking effect. However, critics argue that the visual flair overshadowed the plot's coherence and emotional depth. Therefore, if Ridley Scott opts to integrate slow-motion sequences as heavily as Zack Snyder does, Gladiator 2 might face similar issues. Considering how Scott previously balanced raw intensity with strategic pauses in Gladiator, the filmmaker should be able to create a similar rhythm that kept the audience on edge. But in case he fails, it might result in a massive flop. Moreover, considering how the trailer for Gladiator 2 has already sparked some skepticism, particularly regarding the film score, Ridley Scott's possible reliance on Zack Snyder-esque slow-motion style might gravely affect the film's reception. The use of slow-motion sequences, as hinted by Paul Mescal, might further fuel concerns, especially if they come across as a stylistic gimmick rather than a meaningful enhancement of the narrative. Fans hope to see a lot of wrongs righted after WB's disastrous handling of the DCU. Welcome to Stats In. If you're just joining us, please subscribe and don't forget to turn on notifications bell for more video. James Gunn's Superman has gotten fans anticipating what the new era of the DC universe will bring for the fans after the disastrous DCU. The Guardians of the Galaxy director has promised a Superman who is much closer to the comic version of the character, as opposed to the more realistic take that Zack Snyder took with his version of Superman. While Zack Snyder's Superman took a bold and novel approach with Superman in the DCU, the character failed to resonate with the fandom at large but was well loved by a core group of fans. However, James Gunn's version of the characters is sticking to its comic roots, creating a character that is much more familiar with the larger fandom. After the experimental approach that the DCU took with its cinematic universe, James Gunn's DCU is going to focus on bringing the heroes back to their roots. With how popular the characters of DC are, the franchise need not spend the time to lay the groundwork that the MCU had to do, allowing James Gunn to dive directly into an established world to create his connected universe of characters. In all fairness, Snyder showed Superman saving people in MOS and BVS.